Welcome to our next session. So this session is called InEvent Presents a Life in Events, a Q&A with Mahoganey Jones. So I'd like to introduce Mahoganey Jones from Event Specialists and Pedro from InEvent. So you are at the InEvent Theatre. This is being sponsored by InEvent, obviously. We have a booth next door. We are an all-in-one event management platform, which Pedro is going to talk to you more about during this session. If you'd like to come and see us after the session, we have some giveaways and stuff next door. Please come and see us. So, on to this session. So join us. We're going to dive into event management, and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about some engaging Q&A, talk to Mahoganey about her journey as an events professional, and what shaped her path in the events industry, and gaining some knowledge and some valuable insights. It'll be great. After that, Pedro is going to share with you our new innovative website builder as a short demo, and you're welcome to stay for that and see how you can create and manage some event websites through our new builder. So, without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Pedro. Just before I do that, if you'd like to scan this QR code, or go to Pigeonhole, and you can post any questions that you might have, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So thank you very much. Over to you, Pedro.
Thank you, Tim. This is an exciting morning, right? Like, this is mostly the last trade show of the year. Like, we've been to so many this year, right? Like,
we're almost there.
You know, like, one thing that we know from this industry is legacy, right? Like, we go to these trade shows, and we go to 10 or 15 of those every year. And I believe, like, I've seen everyone, it's always the same faces, right? Like, so how has the industry changed in those last 15 years? You know, like, since we started the company back in 2004, I believe, right? To today, like, what have you seen, and what the trade shows have evolved in all those 20 years?
Well, that's a loaded question to start this panel. I will say over the last few years, I know when I started in the industry, it was a little bit more, I don't want to say static, but everything was done, in French we say tel quel. So everything was always happening because it was supposed to happen that way. We went to trade shows for our own industries, and only our own industries. We didn't feel like we had ability or even the capacity to go to somebody else's trade show to learn. I feel like over the years it did start to evolve, where we, I guess as planners, and I can only own it as a planner, realized that there are other industries that we could also learn from. So then we started to borrow from different industries, and we started to see a change and a little shift in at least the content and the delivery at trade shows. And then now we're starting to see, in my opinion, a little bit of a rise of the design of the trade show, and then bringing it back to creating experiences versus just like a booth build per se. I mean, look at the different stages that we have here. Look at the different activations that we have here. So we're starting to see a little bit more experience design.
So when do you say content? Like, you talk about like content about the events, or like actually go to a completely different industry and, you know, learn from there? Like, and when you go to a completely different industry, like, because we're event planners, right? We produce events, we work with events. When you go to a different trade show, what do you usually learn from them? Like, what type of content are you interested about, like, to learn? And, you know, what's the curious thing that you learn on a completely different industry? Yeah.
For me as a planner, some of the favorite shows I like to go to are industry shows, like the sales conferences. If we think of like HubSpot's Inbound, if we think of South by Southwest, those are the shows that I like to go to as a planner. And even C2 Montreal, we'll give a shout out to a Canadian show that does it well. But for us to go to those events to see how those planners are designing, to see what kind of experiences are happening. And then for me, it's also to learn what kind of content is actually sticking with their audiences. Are we seeing more short form? Are we seeing more long form content? Are we seeing less stage presence like this and more activations? That's what I like to look for and see.
That's really interesting. I was attending SEMA back in Salt Lake City, which is a great conference, by the way. Back in the US, I think it's like 300 attendees only, so it's very good. And one thing that we've heard there, it's like how we event planners are not good conference goers. Like, we don't know how to attend a conference. Like, we go there, and like when we are planning a conference, like our point of view is such that we do not know how we are going to actually go to our own conferences, right? And they were talking about like the experience where you design something, then you go there and experience that yourself with like working for the conference, trying to see how that's going to look like. And that's really interesting, like to see how you don't actually design something for you until you test it, right? So how do you prepare for this? Like, how do you actually, think about the conference planner, the actual attendee, instead of like just the planner?
For me, I like to plan the customer journey. I also feel like I'm also that planner that is beating the horse of, it's time to plan for our objectives. It's time to know what we're doing. So I read all the know before you goes. I like to plan a schedule and put it all together and then see what I'm going to walk into. If I feel like there is no customer journey, then it's not really going to force my attention as a planner to attend. And then I do feel like I switch from being the attendee to the planner. So I'm all of a sudden saying, well, they really didn't do the proper know before you go. They didn't tell us what to expect. They didn't set me up for success. They didn't tell me how to get the best experience from the show. So, but I will totally create my own checklist.
Yeah. I mean, these are some key insights. The other thing that I've learned recently that was really nice is like all the rituals that you have post-conference. Like, what do you do to what do you do with your team, to understand and what the attendees shared on feedback and everything. And then there was this planner, which is a large conference in the U.S., and they were talking about how they get Post-its with all the surveys that they get answers from, and they actually put this on a big wall so people can read that, all the team, for like 1 week. So they learned so much from that instead of just like putting the surveys online. And that was something that was interesting, like actually writing the feedback on a wall and getting the Post-its up there. So it's just some key insights that I've seen there. One thing that I've seen evolved over time is like paperless badges, right? Like, have you seen a lot of, like, we didn't have QR codes back in 2000s, right? So that's something that's new, like going and checking using your QR code and everything. How have you seen this journey evolve in like paperless technologies and people adapting those in events and everything?
I find because we built and designed events in the medical space, we were doing QR codes and hybrid events prior to COVID even. There's a lot to be learned actually from the medical education space and the gaming space, which I felt like was already kind of there. We are seeing more, I want to say these paperless badges, but if I'm fully honest, when they start saying paperless and we're not doing all of these trends, we are still printing all the badges when you get on site. We are still reprinting all of the badges when we forget them, me included, all the time. So I feel like we're starting to get to that area, but it still also becomes almost cost prohibitive. So we're still apprehensive to use badge technology that is going to be an additional cost other than paper and a lanyard. So to go paperless and to use these digital badges, while they're very cool, not always practical. QR codes should have existed for a very long time. On badges, it is how we track attendance. It is how we scan in for medical conferences. So we have used the QR code for a long time.
Yeah, one thing that I hear a lot from our clients is, like the cost of hardware and the cost of actually shipping things to events is actually going up these days. Just this year, like we work with various providers. We have providers, some of them are like Asia Pacific, but most of them in the US. And this year we have seen an increase of like 15%, like in the hardware cost, and like labor has increased a lot. So customers are like, how can we automate things like using kiosks and using things that I can pre-print and reduce costs? So they don't want to be spending like $3 per badge. They want to go like something that's going to be 80 cents, 70 cents, right? And so is this a trend is going forward? Like, is people are going to keep reducing costs, or is that going to be something that is going to change after the pandemic, or just going to like a temporary state where we do not have money because the pandemic drove costs crazy up? And what do you see next? Yeah.
Just like everything, I feel like the costs have skyrocketed in our space. One of the things we're starting to see a little bit more of, I mean, with the sustainability and the focus on sustainability, everyone always thought environmentally friendly, but what we're seeing the trend with now is really reinforcing the buying of local. So local buying to reduce the cost. So we're not shipping anything. We're going to rent from the local badge printing company. We're going to use the partners who have someone local so that we don't have to ship anything. we can make it a little bit easier. So we're starting to see that trend rise, which is excellent, especially for local economy and putting money back into the cities we're going to.
Yeah, cost is a thing that it's like I would say it's like the top two thing that people are looking for. Like after the experience, they always think about, can I actually afford the cost that's going to be this conference? So sometimes if they actually don't have the budget for something, they'll actually cut down a little bit on the experience these days so they can actually meet their budget, because costs have increased a lot in the last 12 months, I'd say. Yeah. So let's shift to something really fun now. Like you actually went to the Sphere, right? A few days ago. Like how was that?
That experience was actually phenomenal. Not only was I beyond excited, I was more like a kid in a candy store to get to the space. Shout out to the Canadians. The technology that's on the outside of the Sphere is actually a Canadian architect who helped to build that, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
But it
I
was
didn't know
super
that.
exciting to be there.
Yeah, and so what's the experience like? You enter the stage and like it's all like it's a big bubble, like, and you actually see lights everywhere, or it's like, do you
So-
feel immersed on that, like? Or?
You are immersed. You're immersed from when you first arrive even closer to the Sphere. So the Sphere is lit 18 hours a day, which we thought was kind of cool. You could actually rent this space and rent the outside of the Sphere for your event to accommodate. So right now there's ads that run for 18 hours. When you go into the Sphere, depending on the experience that you were there for, so we were there for a tour, an event manager's tour. So we went into the experience, which was, I want to say it was called like the postcard from Earth. And then everything began from when you stepped in the door. So they had avatars that were there who spoke, and they were very creepy because you could have true conversations with them. And yeah, the conversations would actually blow your mind. I have lots of videos if anybody wants to see that. But it showed us how AI is working and evolving. The coolest thing for me, which I felt like, was all of these senses were activated in the space. So even before you went in, you could see all of the different technology, but they showed us how you could isolate sound in the space. So for all of us fan of audios, shout out to the audio techs who make all of these things happen. But they showed how you could segment the sound in the space. So they had 4 bubbles at the beginning, and you could stand in one. So they had one activation that was like a band, and it had 4 instruments in it. When you were between the bubbles, you could hear all 4 instruments. As you went into a different bubble, you could only hear 1 instrument. And there was no bleeding over of sound, which I, to this day, don't know how it's actually done, but it was phenomenal to hear. They did the same activation with languages, which allowed us to go bubble to bubble and hear different languages. And you could hear like 4 people talking when you were in between. And then you would go into one and only hear English, or you would only hear Spanish, or you'd only hear the different languages. So
That's really cool. I mean, I wanted to be there, like, but I had to go to another show, but it was fantastic. And now going back to that very first question, like how do we, as event planners, do we plan that? So now that you went to this Sphere, like how do you, if you were meeting with a client, right, and the client's like, I want to host an event at this Sphere, like what's your take on that? Like what would be like the recommendations that you should think? How do you plan that? How do you design something around this Sphere? Yeah.
just like any space, the Sphere would not be ideal for everything. To me, the Sphere would be meant for something that's more networking style and then content heavy. So a content heavy event, not a dinner, not a gala, not that kind of experience, but something that's more experiential and learning. Because you can customize the space on the inside as well and completely activate every wall, space, inside, you can actually do full trade shows. They actually had full trade show floors set up when we were there, and somebody was moving in for their event, and it was a full trade show that had different activations on the 3 levels, which I thought was actually really cool. And all of it was projections onto the sides, and that was what the exhibits were. So it has to be, in my opinion, something very immersive and something that would be true content. I mean, if you think of even the U2 concert that we had the privilege of going to as well at the Sphere, they used every piece of technology in the space. So the sound that we saw, the choice of what was on the screens went completely above your head, to the shaking of your seats and the blowing of the air when something was supposed to be cold. Like it has to be a true immersive experience.
And like events, we actually have to be creative all the time. Like we're always looking for the FOMO experience, right? Like something that's going to be the new thing every single year. So how do you see the industry moving forward? Because for example, the Sphere, as cool as it is, like they posted a huge loss recently, like this quarter, and it's a huge investment, and right now they are paying it off. So like, is there another way to innovate on events that doesn't require you to build like $1 billion revenue or $1 billion, sphere? Like, what's the other thing that we can still innovate for 2024, 2025 without having to use like very expensive investments? Yeah.
Let's look at our audience and who you're actually designing for. One of my biggest pet peeves in our space is that we feel like we have to apply every trend. I mean, us as planners, how many meetings have we gone into where they say, we want to innovate, we want to be the leader in whatever, and then decide that, if you remember Pokemon Go, it's like the amount of times I was asked to produce an event and include Pokemon Go in it, irrelevant. Yes, my children love Pokemon Go, but it's not meant for every industry. It's not meant for everything. How many times did we have VR stations at our events? If your audience is not the audience who will use VR stations, don't try to innovate with something that you feel is the current trend. So look to your industry and look to the events that you're designing. So if you're in the financial space, there are other financial industry conferences. For us, one of the biggest ways to find the trends, in my opinion, is to look at how the international representations are doing that event. So if we look at finance, for example, what is the Canadian conference doing? Is there anything that's fun that's being added and well received? Let's look at that as a trend versus looking at a global trend of VR stations, of pop-up experiences, of silent headphones. Look at something that works for your industry.
That's really cool. Yeah, design something around what people are talking about, right? And that's a comment that I actually got when we went to this Sphere, because at the same time there was this thing with Taylor Swift selling out in the US, right? So everybody was saying like, why don't you replace U2 with Taylor Swift? So you're actually going to be able to sell out everything, and then you're going to be like profitable day one, right? And that's something that was part of the industry, like how that the music trends connected with actually the Sphere, and then everything came up together. So we wrote an article about this, and the article on like Taylor Swift selling out in the US across events was actually more popular than we actually got on the Sphere. So it's really part of like a connected ecosystem, yeah. The last question that I have, we do have a demo of a very cool product that we're going to announce just in 2 minutes, but I have a question now on like future and legacy at the same time. So how do you see like that you're going to be like 10 years in the sense of like transfer the knowledge that you have, because you're like a very knowledgeable person, a very knowledgeable event planner, right? So how do you see, like, you think like you're going to pass this knowledge to like your children or to like people that are going to take the company forward like in a few decades or so, or how do you see like perpetuating that knowledge and improving the events that moving forward here?
Well, right now, we are building a team at Event Specialists who is starting to actually document a lot of these things. I am starting to record a lot more content so that our team will be able to learn kind of my approach and my view to how we produce events. I have brought the children into the company as well. My youngest has also threatened a coup and a takeover. But at 12, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I am teaching them. I do expose them to a lot of events. I bring them to events. I also teach them what it means to produce for a client. I mean, that's something that we don't always understand. How to share someone else's vision and bring someone else's vision to life is not the same as bringing your own event vision to life. I had the privilege of having my children on site last week, actually, at an event, and I assigned them roles. So they had, one was talent management, and my youngest is interested in production, so I usually put my youngest at the tech table. And my youngest is now able to do the content, can actually manage Zoom, all the things, and does it for school, and does school things as well.
It's I mean, I'm glad to hear. Like, it's always good when you actually have this going, and reminds me when we get started. Like I got started only 10 years ago, but one day we'll get there as well. Thanks so much for this talk. We actually have a product that we like to talk about, talking about innovation. We have been talking about the Sphere, so different things. And we actually have a brand new product that we're going to announce today. We actually announced this just a few minutes ago on our social media. But we do have a release video as well, so we're going to play that for you. And we would love to get your feedback, and then we can actually do a quick demo of our new... Of course, just give me a second. And let's play this video, and then we can see what that's all about.
We all remember those memories we had playing with wooden city blocks. What if I told you that building a website is just as satisfying and fun?
Hey everyone! Remember all these hours that we spent playing the brick game, perfectly fitting all these blocks into place? Introducing our brand new website builder. All that you have to do is pick a brick, or maybe let's call a piece of the website, and put exactly where you want it.
You need a header? Just drop it at the top. You need event photos maybe? Just place it on the side. It's all a game of drag and drop, no coding wizardry required.
Fit those pieces together, and just like that, have your website ready for your next event.
See you in the next feature announcement. Thank you.
Very cool. So we have been working on this project for the new website builder now for almost 1.5 years, and we actually have a quick demo
We
here
all remember those memories we had playing with wood.
Of how that looks like, and we actually have a live demo here that we can share with you and how flexible that is. So one thing that as event planners that we know, it's how hard it is to actually say yes to the client on everything they're looking for, right? Because everything's customizable, everything requires to be to a certain standard, and it's not about just designing the way that we want. It's about complying with what the client actually needs. And this website builder was actually planned hearing the feedback from other event planners and putting together something that can actually customize every single element on the page, right? So here, for example, I have built a quick website just a few minutes ago, and here we can explore the different options that we have on the platform. So first, you can start with a block that we call these, so we can have speakers, exhibitors, agenda, and more, and you can drag them to the platform. And as you do that, you're going to have the option to customize each of these elements right there. The way that you customize something is going to be super straightforward. You can actually click on something. Just by clicking, it's going to show options on the left side. And then you can actually change, for example, like the color of the text, if we like. So we can just go here, pick a new color, and that updates in real time. And you can do that for every single element on the page. So if I want to add, for example, a new block here that's going to be a paragraph, I just go here to the paragraph page, and I'm going to select here, let's say, text. I just drag the text right here to the page. And by doing that, it inserts something right there in real time, and I can just type something. So, hi, welcome to our website. And you can do that very easily just by typing exactly what you want. And I just deleted that. But you can just drag and drop new elements, and you have all these options for customization as well. So you have headers that you can add to the platform. You have images as well that you can add very easily there. And as you do that, you can just drag and drop any elements that you want or that the client wants. And you can add their footers as well on the platform, all that in real time. So I can just confirm something, and that's going to be available right there on the website. What's really nice about this new feature is that you can basically change every single element. So if I want to go here, for example, on the schedule, and I want to add that particular element, like 8 o'clock, to be available in a different color, I can just go here on the font, or for example, like just change the font, and that's going to update the font of that specific element right there. So as you can see, this is now different from this one, right? So this thing is unparalleled power that you never had before. Basically, before you wanted to work with something, you had to customize using blocks, and those things are not really customizable at that degree. And that's something that we are bringing to our industry, so we can actually be the true all-in-one platform. So one thing that we talk about a lot is like how it can actually be all-in-one, right? And all-in-one is about having a powerful website, is about having a powerful check-in system, a good mobile app, and also have the perfect registration system. Sometimes you work with companies that only have one of those, right? Like you have to work with one registration company, one website company, and one check-in kiosk badge printing company. And that's really hard to do. But if you have everything all in one, the website builder is something that we were missing, like that we wanted to take this to a new level. So now you can just go here on the platform, customize the pages as you like, and that's going to allow you to quickly customize this with all these options. So you can change colors, you can change fonts, you can change borders, decoration, maps, images, videos, and all of this on a single element and update that in real time. All right? I have here a sample, for example, of some websites that we're building, such as, for example, this one from The Atlantic. It's a client, for example, that they use InEvent technology to do that. It's a public page. If you want to access theatlantic.com, you can actually access these on your phones as well. And you can see how nice that looks when you put together all these elements. You can upload your own custom font. So this is like an image from their own events that you can put up there. You can have a website designed on the platform with video that you can play, and then we host the video for you as well. You also have the option to display future events and highlight different images and have, GIFs and animations as well that we can put together for you. And then you also have the option to display speakers, put together information, the way that's going to be designed, the shadows, the borders, the fonts, everything can be customized to your specifications. So if you have, for example, your own custom font that your organization uses, it's proprietary, you can actually upload this on the InEvent platform, and then that's going to look like this, all right? So these are a few examples of websites that we are building for our clients using this new technology that you can actually review and access today. So basically bringing a new experience to how you put together, websites and design these and make our clients really happy. I mean, that's what we event planners really like to do, right? So that's a little bit of our new technology, the new website builder. It's online if you like to test, like do a free trial. Like it's something that we are getting feedback on this. It's our work, and I really appreciate it. If anyone has any questions about the demo, about questions we ask Mahoganey or anything, we'll be super happy to take them as well. All right,
thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Mahoganey. We don't have any questions posted on Pigeonhole, but does anyone have any questions from the audience? No? Okay, well, we'll wrap things up. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Mahoganey. That was really informative. And I've learned what demo I need to do from tomorrow as well. So thank you all for your time. We are InEvent. We are next door. We have some giveaways. If you'd like to find out more about our tech, please come and join us. Come and visit us. We're here all day. Thank you, guys. Cheers.